The live coding module allows you to write Python code in real time to algorithmically generate music. All of the data of your saved loops, your fader values, and your scenes is accessible through a Python API. Here you can see some of the saved information. It's mostly zeros because we haven't really saved anything yet. So let's play some generated music. The library currently implements a handful of simple functions for transforming music. This function, ramTranspose, takes a melody, the root of that melody, and a scale that that melody is played in, and it'll randomly transpose parts of it. To play the results of our transformation, we need to start up a channel. So a channel can be constructed with an index, so you know how to stop it, a function, which is this lambda function here, that takes in a melody and then returns some transformation on it, and an initial melody to start with. So this is our starting melody. And this is what it'll sound like after it's transposed. So what's happening here is that the channel will play the original melody, and then when the loop is at the end, it'll request the transformed version from this function. And that function will give it a new version, and then when that is finished, it'll request another version again. But because this function is randomly transposing parts of it, it'll be different the second time. So you actually have an infinite stream of music that'll be playing out of this channel. So what's really interesting about this setup is that technically the function that you pass to the channel doesn't even need to be a function itself. If you're familiar with Python, you know that objects can also have a callable interface. So your functions can also incorporate stateful behavior to get some really interesting and intricate effects. Another thing you can do with live coding is change the behavior of the quad looper itself. For example, this first instrument right now is playing in C minor. But we can change that to playing C major. Or even C major pentatonic. You can also spell out your own scales if you want to have some interesting variations there. You can also make more drastic changes to the quad looper. By toggling this button here, you enter hyper keyboard mode, where the key presses can map to more than just single notes. For example, by running this line here, we can turn this keyboard into an arpeggiator. So now, if we hold this down, when you hold down a chord, it'll arpeggiate based on the pattern that's described here. And the string that you use to describe the pattern actually uses the same syntax as described in the Python module. So, for example, here is another arpeggio that you can play, or another arpeggio pattern. So future plans for this live coding module are to define a cleaner API for making such hyper keyboard plugins easier to write.